welcome back to the next episode of Don't Fear the Weight podcast with me, your host, the TinyTitan. I need to really emphasize the now. I think it's because I am such a small person that if I don't say the, it's just like I'm really insignificant, especially because of the amount of guests that I have on here who really are not insignificant. And especially my guest today, Sam Bennett, also known as The Barbarian. So Sam, welcome on board the Don't Fear the Weight podcast. Thank you for giving up your time today. So Sam, just give us a little bit of a rundown about who you are, because you're not actually really well known on all of the social medias these days, are you? So give us a bit of a rundown about who you are.
Yeah, so I started bodybuilding when I was about 15, which is 11 years ago now. I did a competition straight up when I was 16. First one was, I don't even know if it's still going now, Musclemania, might be.
Oh, it might be.
It was a natural show, one of those.
Oh right, yeah, it's one of those natural shows. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, where everyone's natural. I did that one, and then at around 18, I was lucky enough to work and train at the original Temple Gym. Cool. So I got to learn from guys like Dorian, Ernie, and well-established bodybuilders.
Yeah.
As well as meeting, all the guys who used to come over for like body power, things like that. That was, awesome experience.
Sure.
And then I did a couple of shows when I was like 19, 20, UK BFF, when it was when it was the main thing back in the day.
Of course.
NABA, competed pretty much everywhere really. WABA, NAC, Pure Elite. I've done them all. I mean, I said the only ones I haven't done actually are PCA and Two Bros, because they were a bit after when I started. And then kind of about 2017, 2018, I had an idea of creating my own bodybuilding show.
Cool.
Because I just got a bit sick of seeing how shows were run and seeing kind of the politics through them. And we just created an independent show, which was basically based on fun and just proper bodybuilding values. And I'll be honest, last year's was a bit shit because of, COVID.
Yes.
And it was literally just about getting a show to give people a chance to compete. But the year before that was wicked. We had Luke Sandow guest posing. The venue was a lot bigger, a lot better. And yeah, I've wrote for the Beef Mag. I do more football coaching now. And I've kind of toned down how much I post on social media these days.
Yeah.
Just because I'm, when you're trying to change career and, looking like, I mean, when you go into football coaching, the bodybuilding background, it has its benefits and its drawbacks, as you can imagine.
For sure. Do you find that actually, talking about the industry, because obviously you've taken a step back from bodybuilding realistically, as in like building your complete physique, but do you find that your personal image can actually hold you back from, say, football coaching the younger generation?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely say to anyone who's involved in bodybuilding, unless you're doing this for the rest of your life, make sure you don't do too many changes. How do I phrase that? I'll give you an example. Okay, there's things I do when I was on gear which I wouldn't even consider doing now, and I look back and think, like, you know what I mean? Even head tattoos, things like that. When you get into like an industry where, like, for example, me, where that could affect me a little bit, I look and I'm like, why did I get that? It's because I just saw myself for the next 20 years being a bodybuilder, but unfortunately, that doesn't happen for many people. I mean, you can bodybuild, socially, but to make a career out of it and make good money,
it's very far and few between, isn't it? I think that's one of the biggest things that we can take from, I can take from this personal conversation as well. Being a professional bodybuilder, everybody wants to be a pro. Everybody wants to do it as a career. But how realistically, you've been doing it for, 11 years realistically. So, but
I made money from bodybuilding by not competing. I made all my money from, I say all my money, some money, the shows, coaching, things like that. It wasn't directly from bodybuilding. I mean, if I put all the costs together, how much I used to spend on preps, foods, I dread to imagine the total cost.
Yeah.
But even to be a pro, it's just, I've got to be honest, it's so overrated. Like when you I look back and I mean, I remember the guys I look up as like heroes when I was 16, 17 with pro cards. A lot of them were still doing like, you know, a normal job whilst, you know, having a pro card. And a lot of them, you know, like they didn't have big cars, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. They had made so many sacrifices for this card. But the truth is, like, other than the kind of close-knit community that is bodybuilding, no one else knows or no one else cares.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? People outside bodybuilding don't know who the pros are.
Oh, like honestly, like I mean, I remember I did a Pure Elite show, like as a warm-up show, and obviously they hand out pro cards like anything.
Oh yeah, cereal
And
boxes.
yeah, and literally I won one, and obviously for marketing it's brilliant because you know you plug it a bit. And the guys at the gym were like, "Oh my god, does this mean you compete against Kai Green?" And I was like, "Sure." You know?
Slightly different league, but yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Sure,
I mean,
why
like
not?
even like a football, you know, like I've downsized a lot. I'm only about 105 kilos now, and obviously I train more for like fitness. They still think I'm absolutely jacked. Whereas like I feel, you know, like not tiny, but a big difference. But I mean, they still think I'm bodybuilding, even though I just casually train, you know.
So why do you think then in the industry now, when the young guys are getting into bodybuilding and like obviously starting off at the gym and that kind of thing, why do you think the mentality is that everybody just wants to be a pro? Why can they not just kind of
Um,
like climb the ranks like you and me used to do?
I think social media plays a big part.
Mm,
I think, I mean, I know this phrase comes up like the whole Instagram generation of bodybuilders.
yeah, for sure.
Like it's quite weird to think 'cause when I started training, I mean, I don't think I even had Facebook. I know I didn't have Instagram, that's for sure. I just used to train for the fun of it. I wanted to be a bodybuilder because, well, initially it's because of Arnold, actually, the films, and
Yeah.
then obviously I think I saw a Flex Mac in WHS Smith, and I was like, yeah, that's wicked.
Yeah.
And I mean that's why I kind of started. But I think a lot of it now is because they see it as like the be all of end all. Like I think some people have false aspirations maybe with it. Like they think I get this pro card, my life is going to change. I mean, if anything, you know, I think you have to pay for the pro card, don't you? Each year as well. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
to
do
renew
you?
it. Yeah. I think well they used to. So if you got a pro card, you'd have to renew it every year,
Oh,
and that was about I think 150 quid, 200 quid.
really?
Yeah. Seriously, this was I know this was back in UK BFF days. I'm not sure if it's the same with the IFBB nowadays, but you used to have to renew your pro card.
That is so funny. So if you just paid for your renewal every single year, does that just entitle you to the fact that you can hold this IFBB Pro card all the time?
So in theory, if you have a pro card and you renew it, obviously you'll be able to compete in like pro shows. But if you don't
Sure.
renew it and you're still an IFBB pro, you can't compete. I think there's one bodybuilder who didn't renew their pro card one year and they couldn't do a show and they got quite funny about it. I can't remember who it was, but I'm going to dig that out and I'll have to message you about it and find out.
Yeah, I'll put it into the notes because that would be really something that people should actually take note of and just kind of go, actually, do you know what? If you don't renew your card, you're actually not allowed anymore. You're not a pro.
I mean, you still have to renew it, and even like you know, a pro card, like you still have to get like invitations for like the big shows, like the Arnold Classics. You know,
Sure.
the Olympia's obviously qualification based.
Mm.
But I mean, the thing with a pro card is it's a death sentence to a lot of people's like bodybuilding careers, and it's that honestly, these words now are the truest thing ever. I've seen so many people, so many good amateur bodybuilders who have been competitive all their careers, you know, winning trophies, you know, top 6 placings, top 3. They get their pro card and they just don't place. And they're just funneling money to not even place or to come 17th, 18th in a pro show. And I mean, they pay for the flights, they do all this, and it's such a waste of money. And obviously, to me, that would lose my interest in it because obviously I do a sport to be competitive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, would I rather win trophies and stay an amateur or just not place as a pro? I'd go for the amateur.
So why do you think that
Personally.
is? Do you think it's just because of the caliber of the athlete that they're up against and they don't actually understand what kind of league that they are getting themselves into when they get that pro card?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's like anything, I I think it was Macho Man Randy Savage said, the cream always rises to the top.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And at that level, you get the genetic elite just, you know. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the UK has good bodybuilders. I mean, look at America. America has lots of good bodybuilders, but in the pro leagues, it's only a very few make it. And those few that make it, like I said, either have great genetics, either dedicate their entire existence to it, or they're willing to risk a few things. So
there is that, isn't there? So talking about looking at risks and that kind of thing, do you think that these days, compared to obviously back in the day, do you think that people are taking far more risks now that are not particularly worth it?
yeah, I mean, there's always been that big question, hasn't there? Has bodybuilding improved since, let's say, the 90s or the early 2000s? The way I look at it, the top level, no. But if like, I don't know, you went to a standard, if you went to a gym in the 90s compared to a gym now, people would be in much better shape now. I believe that. But I think people are taking too much risks. I mean, it's just all these other products that come out, like guys taking like, I think it's, you know, it's a Metaform, that water stuff you put in your arms. I think it is.
Oh, Synthol.
Yeah, so Metaform's like a water base, like kind of a bit like Synthol. Like guys like being recommended to take that like straight away. And I mean, just like, I don't know, there's just so many things like DMP, high levels of clen, this, that, and I don't know. I just think it's too risky. I think that what kind of makes me like think like wow is a lot of guys, like the top level guys nowadays, like they're very mixed in their dosages. Like one thing I'll say to people is pros, like you'll find some pros who probably take 100 grams. You'll find some pros who take 4 grams a week. It varies so much. And obviously a lot of it depends on who you get your advice from and what you see on the internet. And I mean, I remember when I was like 17, 18, and I'd, you know, read up on Google, and there was something called GH15.
Yes.
Brilliant. And everyone thought it was Nasir at the time. And he used to talk about the cycles, like insulin, GH, and some of the dosages were crazy. And I'd look at that and be like, you know, whereas guys in the gym would tell me 2 different stories, because obviously working at Temple Gym, you know, I remember muscular development, they posted Dorian cycle, and it was like 30 mega debol, and I think it was like 500 tests. Yet someone in the gym would tell me they saw him like pinning himself like 6 times around a training session. And that was a guy who trained there for like 25 years. And I'm like, you know, I just think it's very hush hush sometimes. But
I agree with you. I do think that a lot of people, especially in the high level pro ranks, I don't think they're very honest with their cycles. And I think that can make, I don't really know. I mean, I think not being honest with their cycles on social media, I think is a very clever thing. And I think that should actually remain, because I think that if somebody did put their full cycle up on social media, that could influence the younger generation and just kind of go, oh, well, he's done that, so I want to be a pro, so I'll do that.
Like, I remember a funny story. I think it was when Lee Priest did an ABBA show. And obviously Lee Priest, he always talks about like, oh, I barely take anything, this and that. When he did an ABBA show, so someone told me, someone who obviously like provided his stuff, that basically he got a lot more things than he said he took. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I found that a bit, but I do agree, like, because otherwise people will copy them. Like the amount of people I know who copied like Jordan's stupid cycles.
Yeah.
Like 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and it is so like irresponsible. And yeah, I'm not keen on it. I've got to be honest.
No, that's it. I mean, it's like you said, unless you want to obviously take those risks and put it up. I mean, I know that Jordan's obviously come off all of his gear now, and he's just running TRT and growth at this moment in time for his specifics. But he's also lost a lot of weight because he wanted to get into some physical fitness shape because he didn't want to compete anymore. And fair dues to him, you know, he's being completely open and honest about what he's actually doing at this moment in time, which is great. And that's on his site that he's documenting everything. But just having a look at his Instagram pictures, you can see that he's an extremely weathered individual facially as well.
I mean, he has fucked himself. Like, I mean, let's, you know, you got to be straight honest. I mean, I respect what he's done, and I mean, far better bodybuilder than I'll ever be. But I mean, the way I look at it is, in Jordan's case, he's kind of risked his health from a business point of view, because he's got a really good business. But like, I mean, he looks about 60. Let's be honest. And I think he's only 30. And even, I mean, now it's too late health-wise with him. It's too late. I mean, sorry, just dropped something. But like, I mean, even being that weight, it's not healthy. Like, I mean, it's all right saying, yeah, coming off, and you read the comments and people are like, oh, you're gonna do one more show. Oh yeah, it's still an addiction up there. And when you've got that mindset, you'll never. I've seen so many people drop dead from this sport. So many have heart issues, all sorts of issues, and there's going to be a hell of a lot more in the next 10 to 20 years. And I thank my missus every few months, because I obviously, like, kind of when I met her, I kind of, not lost interest, but I just valued my health a bit more. Now, don't get me wrong, there's using gear safely, and there's like almost taking the piss, and a lot of guys take the piss. Like, I mean, I'm sure he'll be the first to admit he didn't need to take half of the stuff he needed to take, and I always often think, like, don't these people want kids? Don't they want to live long? Don't they want to, be able to run around when they're 60? I can't see and he doesn't have a pro card.
No, exactly.
So really, like, the original goal still hasn't been attained, like, he's a really nice guy, but like, I think now he's kind of realizing, hang on, like, shit, I'm 30. How much longer am I going to live if I still do this? Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
And I think there'll be a lot more guys, hopefully, who will take back, have a look, and be like, you know what? I need to change my ways a bit. Hopefully.
Hopefully. I know, I was either watching a YouTuber or I was listening to a podcast, and it was about a bodybuilder who is an Olympian, and he qualifies for the Olympia all the time. He's very, very good. But he was actually saying the stuff that I did when I was 20, I can actually look back and think to myself, fucking hell, I was superhuman at that point. Now that I'm 30, there's no way that I can do half the shit that I did when I was 20, because my knees are bad, my hips are sore, my back is fucked, and the kind of stuff that we can put ourselves through as bodybuilders, trying to attain that pro status, it is just like exactly what you said. I mean, I've got kids, they're teenagers now and stuff, but I've always been able to run around with them because I've never really pushed to certain degrees, and it's only now that I'm getting to the realms of pushing really bloody heavy that my knees are starting to be sore when I'm walking the dog, and I'm just like, maybe I should like have a think about what's going on with my joints a little bit more.
I tell you what, the hardest thing I ever did was obviously going from bodybuilding to football. So I did give it like quite a few months. So I downsized quite a bit, came off gear about nearly 2 years ago now, and literally downsized. And then I waited probably 6-7 months till I played football. And I from the first game, I only played 15 minutes, and my hips, my back, my glutes were in agony. Like, I mean, obviously people talk about functional fitness, but bodybuilding is not functional at all. And even now, like, I play a match, the next day I'm so sore, like I'm wrecked. Worse than it was after leg day when I was bodybuilding.
See, that's the thing though, people don't actually understand that. I was having this conversation with my homie the other day, and people don't understand that if you take gear, you still have to work just as hard to get that little bit of an extra result. But what it helps with is recovery. So when you're running around and doing sorry, my phone's going a bit mental. When you're running around and doing your football stuff, it's the next day where you're just like, holy shit, muscle DOMs are real. I never had this when I was on gear, because it helped with recovery. And what is the thing with glutes always being sore? Just tell me this. Even when you do a fucking push day, your glutes are always sore. What is that about?
I mean, mine are terrible, because I've never really been a big compound lifter. Even like when I was like bodybuilding, I was never really like a big deadlifter. I used to squat when I was younger, but I just mechanically, and I'll be honest, I just couldn't get the form. I know it sounds like silly, but I just didn't feel confident enough that I was doing it 100%. So I was more like a hack squat, leg press. But yeah, I definitely feel it now when I play football.
It's a completely different side of performance, isn't it? I mean, you're talking about sprinting and stop starting and stop turns and things like that. We
Yeah.
don't do
Oh
that as
my god, it's
bodybuilders.
just the turn of pace. It's so. I mean, from like the weird thing is, I'm actually not too. I'm quite quick from like just a straight sprint.
Yeah.
With football, it's just a little, turns in the body, and no.
That's the thing, isn't it? When you actually compare the two, bodybuilders move in two planes, and that's vertical and horizontal, and that's
Yeah.
it. We don't do anything else. Whereas for functional fitness, if you're trying to bend down sideways and then pick something up like shopping or whatever like that, bodybuilders can't do
Yeah.
that. They have to turn in a specific manner in order to do shit.
That's why a lot of kind of muscle tears and things like that actually occur outside the gym.
Oh, for
So
sure.
I think Branch Warren, I think he slipped on ice once. Well, one time he slipped on ice, then he fell off his horse. Victor Martinez was at arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like another guy, I think, was playing tennis.
Yeah.
I can't think of the guy's name, but yeah, just things like that.
It's mad, isn't it? I've got a good friend and he's had two massive issues. He put his back out putting on socks. That was his first one. And then he completely had a complete detachment of his quad stepping out of his house. So literally from the front door down a step, and he completely detached his quad. It was like, wow.
Funnily enough, I was talking about this yesterday with my friend at the gym, saying how, when you're a kid, if you, climb up the sofa and jump on the floor, you'll be fine. Yeah. Do it as like a 18-stone bodybuilder, you need to be wrecked.
Completely wrecked, completely. And you'll probably like tear a glute or a hamstring or something like that. Oh God, the amount of people who have been in bodybuilding and they're like looking at internal scars and go, I've detached my hamstring like 3 times. It's like, well, actually, is this really a good thing that we should be doing? But anyway, moving on from this specific. Right, so in your point of view then, we do go out on these tangents. It's very interesting. In your point of view, what do you think has been the major change from bodybuilding, say 10 years ago, to bodybuilding now? And why was it that you realistically took a step back from bodybuilding and went, no, I don't want to do it anymore?
So in terms of the changes, obviously social media, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I think again, like I don't know, I know it sounds bad. I kind of think more classes and shows. I think that's kind of, it gives more people an opportunity to compete, but it also, like, I don't want to say alienates more people, but do you know what I mean? Like it kind of gets in their head a bit more. And I think, I don't know, I think the way shows are run nowadays as well, they kind of, like what Two Bros are doing in terms of the whole pro card. Like some of the people who compete in those shows are nowhere near ready for a pro card, but they just, they can't resist the temptation.
Yeah.
I think, isn't it like 150 quid a class or something as well?
I think it is, yeah. I think it's proper expensive to go and enter into one. I remember when I competed back in 2015, it was 35 quid to actually join the federation, and then £30 to enter the show. And you could only actually enter one class, because that's basically, especially as a female, because it's like, well, that's where you enter. It was a bodybuilding show at the end of the day. A figure athlete is not going to meet the criteria of a bodybuilding athlete, for example. As a female.
Straight up, as like obviously someone who's promoted a show, the whole reason, because the whole reason they do multiple class entry is to get more money.
Yeah.
Like I'll be honest, like our first show, that was our backup, because obviously, I put a lot of money in the first show, and I was like, I don't want to make too much of a loss if it's the first show, because obviously we paid a lot for guest posers, the venue. So I thought, just in case, we'll get multiple class entry, and it does help. But for places like Two Bros, it's a bit different when you're an independent show. But they have like hundreds of competitors anyway. It's just a money grab, straight up.
So what do you think about the different classes, actually? Especially if you have a look at female classes, because obviously when I was first competing, the classes were literally, I don't even think, no, I think we did have bikini, but in the natural shows, we didn't have bikini. Not the ones that I competed in anyway. So we literally just had figure, masters figure, and ladies bodybuilding. Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
athletic, because that's obviously
yeah.
what I want. But forget my own class. But yeah, now there's absolutely loads of
Mm.
women's classes.
Yeah, I think in some, I think one class, well, I've got mixed feelings on this wellness class,
Yeah.
because the look, I do really like the look, but like, I mean, some of the cycles I've heard of, like what the girls take are ridiculous. Like, but then again, I guess it's like in any class, you know,
Mm.
like bodybuilding, it varies, but I think the wellness class, it should just be called the Brazilian class.
Yeah, I know, right? Genetics do have a big place, a big game to play in that one. I've got a couple of clients who said they really want to compete in wellness, and I look at them and I'm like, listen, I'm sorry, but you are either built for wellness or you're not, you know, and
Yeah.
unfortunately that is the case. I'm interested though in terms of what you said about the cycles. Why do you think that the cycles are different for wellness athletes as opposed to, say, a bodybuilding athlete or an aesthetic athlete?
In terms of the women compared to,
Mm.
yeah, so I mean, in terms of obviously bikini, sorry, the cat's scratching the sofa. Prince, do I have to do it?
Ah, there you go. You just have to make him look at me and then I'll be like, ah, no.
Yeah, but in terms of the classes, I mean, obviously bikini, because it doesn't need as much muscle. Don't get me wrong, like I've heard of prep coaches in the past, you know, absolutely, you know, piling them with T-free, bikini girls with T-free, like ridiculous amounts in Claire.
Yeah.
I always remember I heard a story of a junior bikini competitor. I think she weighed like, I want to say maybe under 50 kilos, around 50 kilos, something very, very small. And she was on, I think it was 3 Malay Tigers a day. And obviously Malay Tiger clan was like massively overdosed, filled with
Sure.
amphetamines. And she was junior, so she was about 18, 19.
Oh,
And when she'd walk on the treadmill and she'd have to stop after 10 minutes because she felt faint. And then she'd like wake up in the middle of the night with nosebleeds.
oh my God.
Yeah, and she was the junior, and I think she won the PCA junior bikini 1 year. And needless to say, she's never competed again after that.
I'm not surprised. Malay Tiger Clan is like gnarly shit though, isn't it? I mean, it's not
They
like your...
stop production now.
Yeah, because yeah.
Very hard to get. But in terms of wellness, obviously they need, you know, they need to be so lower half dominant. And obviously, because most of the competitors, like I said, high level, come out of South America as well, where gear is more kind of easily accessible, you know, than let's say the UK, places like that, America, for example.
Yeah.
And just the wellness athletes I know, like there used to be a wellness coach, Robert 3D Physique, and he was, you know, well known for piling girls with like GH, Equipose, Primo, and yeah, ridiculous amounts. I mean, you might not do it anymore because people pulled him out on it, but you know.
I think that there's a fine line, isn't it? I mean, obviously, there's different horses for different courses at the end of the day, and I think it does actually have to come down to what is needed. I mean, the way that I view assistance is the fact that it's exactly that. It's called assistance. You just need enough as a sprinkling to enhance your already hard work that you are putting in. And it's exactly what we were talking about before. People think that if you take drugs, then that's going to do all of the hard work for you, but you have still got to work really fucking hard in order to...
I mean, women have to be careful as well, in terms of, especially antibiotics wise, what they take, because I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, I noticed a big change. I'm not the best looking guy anyway, but when I did gear, when I was on gear compared to now, my skin looks so much better and less puffy. Even though I'm probably chunkier now than I was when I was on gear, it just looks more healthy, if that makes sense. And I mean, at one point I was 21 looking for like 35, 40. So,
but it's like you were saying, now you don't particularly look like that anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like you have had this reversal. So again, the devil is in the dosage and the longevity of things. But I agree with you tenfold, especially with women. Women can... they think that they can just be on gear for the rest of their life and just continuously have these, you know, like men can kind of go on these cruises, and it's like women cannot do that. I'm sorry, girls, you can't.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, especially these young girls who maybe don't have kids yet, you know, don't have a long-term partner. Because I mean, I see it so much like bodybuilding couples. It's like a thing now. And don't get me wrong, I think some do it well, some do it really well, but others, it's a case of you take more, I take more, you take more, I take more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they both end up looking jacked. And I've seen it in pro bodybuilding as well. And it always happens. Once like they stop competing, it ends.
Yeah.
It always does. And I mean, I remember, yeah, I mean, that's a bit, I don't know, I'm bringing that one up because it's a personal friend. But yeah, like you'll find like, you know, the next person they date maybe won't be a bodybuilder or just be a completely normal person. And maybe there's a reason for that, you know?
Yeah, probably more than likely. I mean, my husband's not a bodybuilder. He was a high level competing athlete, but in gymnastics, but he had to give that up. Yeah, yeah. So he understands like the whole competing mindset and stuff like that. But yeah, he's not a bodybuilder at all.
I always think like, because I was never with a female bodybuilder when I competed. Like obviously, you know, I maybe date girls who train and stuff, but I can't imagine anything worse than two people prepping in the same house, like getting proper stressed and both like, you know, a bit snappy. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, you've got to have that special kind of relationship, don't you? I mean, I've got a couple of really good friends, and they're a bodybuilding couple, and they do really bloody well. But again, I think it's just horses for courses, and I do think that gear does play a big point in it, because again, these two friends, when they were on their gear and things like that, he had problems obviously performing or even wanting to perform for like 10 weeks out of a 16-week prep, and it's like, yeah, that's a long time. Do you know what I mean?
That is, yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, I mean, gear. Oh my, don't get me started. I mean, once you've like come off, especially like as someone who did it, you know, as a young man, I can step back and be like, you know what? It definitely did affect my personality and it did affect my choices. And I know this sounds like a bit kind of deep, but the person I am now, like, is kind of how I'd be. Let's say I kind of look at the last like 5 years as a bit of a blur sometimes. Like I just remember like even the anger, you don't really realize it, just that mood. Like, I'm naturally like, you know, I can like, you know, lose it quite quick, but like on the road as well, like even driving, like, whereas now I might just be like, you know, oh fucking this, that. Whereas before I was like, you know, stopping the car trying to like getting out. And yeah, I used to like really bad road rage. And like, oh my god, I look back at some of my old social media posts. Oh, and it's so cringy. Like just the way I'd talk, and like I'd go for a phase. And you know, when I was like, you know, dating as well, like, you know, oh, I mean, yeah, so many choices. I mean, I think, I know it sounds bad. If you're an asshole and you take gear, you just become a bigger asshole.
Yeah.
And naturally, I'm a bit of an asshole anyway, so I shouldn't really take it.
See, that's my motto as being a Titan. Just don't be an arsehole. If you're not an arsehole to begin with and you take gear, then you might just have a little bit of mood fluctuations. But, you know, like you said, if you're an arsehole, all you can do is turn in. I think that's going to have to be the title of this particular one, is like, you know, are you an arsehole? If so, don't be a bodybuilder. But no, that's cool. No, I know that we are. Sorry, go on.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. So what I was thinking to say was, with gear, if you're tempted to do something, maybe not on gear. On gear, you'll do it. That's how, you know.
That's really
I look at it.
What's one of the worst compounds that you've come across in terms of like changing your mood and anger and things like that? Tren, yeah.
Tren is horrendous. It's honestly, I bet I didn't used to use much of it as well because I hated it. But definitely Tren. I mean, the nicest ones, like a low dose test, D-Bol, I used to like. It just gives me like a happy feeling. Again, GH is brilliant. I love GH. I mean, if there's anything now I could take, it would be GH rather than like a low dose of test.
Oh, right. Okay.
Just for the kind of well-being it gave me, the feeling on my joints and that kind of roundness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've never touched Tren in a million years now.
Did you find that you reacted really quickly to Tren as well? So it was almost like a week in, and then all of a sudden you got that range.
Yeah, so I used to have quite a good response to get it. Like people noticed when I was off, and they noticed when I was on. and I used to like a bit of insulin as well. But again, that was less so for competing, but more so for how I like to train, because I love, high reps. I love chasing the pump. I'm never one to do like really, really low reps on things unless it was bench. I had a thing with bench. But just training in general is just horrendous. And people take it way too young, and they wonder why they made bad choices.
Well, yeah, there is that. I have heard a lot of stories about trends, so I suppose, yeah, the question of is it really worth it? It's definitely a big question. I think that's going to be the title, though, to be perfectly honest with you. Don't fear the weight, because is bodybuilding really worth it? And I suppose, because we are coming up on time here, I think that's the question that I want to leave it on. From your perspective, obviously living it for such a long time, to obviously now taking a step back and just kind of doing it for fun, would you actually say, from your perspective, that is bodybuilding actually worth it?
There's a lot of life lessons you can take from bodybuilding and put into other aspects of life. So, for example, the dedication, that regime, that consistency. It's funny, I did, like, I've been studying as well, kind of over the past year or so. And I look at it, and before I started my course, I knew to myself, if I treat my course like I did my bodybuilding, whereas not missing a meal, going to the gym 5 times a week, cardio maybe once or twice a day in prep, I'll ace this course. And I think if you put that mindset into other things, you'll do extremely well. But the only problem, especially with bodybuilding at a young age, is it can kind of take over. And by that, I know so many people who maybe literally take opportunities just around if it fits their bodybuilding. So they might be like, well, I can't do that job because, I might not be able to go to the gym that day, or I can't go on a family holiday because I've got to train, there's no good gyms.
Yeah.
And things like that. I definitely regret missing out on a lot of life experiences, and now making up for it with all the the meals and restaurants to go to now. But I much prefer on a casual level because there's no pressure, there's no stress to compete. I do it for fun, whereas obviously, competing, the amount of pressure it puts on you, and it can put on like a relationships with friends, family, and people need to remember that 99.5% of people, 9% of people are not bodybuilders for the rest of their lives. Are you going to be a bodybuilder at 60 years old? Probably not. Are you going to be a bodybuilder at 50 competing? And I think they've got to look at that, and they shouldn't maybe detriment later life just for what they're doing now, if that makes sense.
Totally.
And health, gosh, guys, if anyone's listening to this, and please get their health checked constantly, because it's getting out of control. It really is with a lot of people. And that goes for both men and women, no matter how old or young you are.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Just make sure that your health markers are in point. So I think one of the things with the health marker things is that people are willing to push the boundaries that little bit more because you've got more supplements to kind of aid the health aspects of things.
That whole side of things as well. Like, I used to take so many health supplements, and it's funny. I do blood work now, and literally the only supplements I take now is vitamin C tablet.
Right.
That's literally all I take. And obviously I've been off nearly 2 years. All my levels are in range, everything, whether it's cholesterol and diet wise. I don't eat like a bodybuilder anymore. I remember, like, when I was bodybuilding, like having to eat avocado because obviously it's good for like cholesterol level, but having to eat this, having to eat that. Whereas now, it's kind of like 3 meals a day, snacks. And snacks as in like crisps or things like that. But because obviously, I'm active, playing sport a lot, and in general, I still eat pretty healthy. My levels are, really good. Whereas even like when I was bodybuilding, for example, even if I was spending, maybe near 100 a month on these health supplements, my levels would be a bit, and I think it's not just obviously the gear as well. It's just like the amount of red meat I'd eat. Or, just like the iron consumption and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider, isn't there, at the end of the day?
I think,
So
I mean, just being that weight as well, you know, that alone isn't very healthy.
no, do you know what? Even I found that. So I normally I'm always going to say that I'm an under 52 kilo powerlifter because that was a happy weight for me to kind of walk around in. But the highest that I pushed my body weight in an off season is 62 kilos. That was 10 kilos more than what I was as a competing powerlifter, and where my body was quite happy just walking around at. And I have to say, when I got up to like the 62 kilo mark, just walking the dog, even my husband was like, you're sounding a bit out of breath. I'm like, I'm fucked. I'm not going to say I'm out of breath. This is hard. So, and it doesn't even seem that heavy, but I mean, it's all relative at the end of the day. So, I mean, if you carried an additional 10 to 20 kilos in terms of your body weight, it's going to be difficult to walk around.
I mean, like I said, I'm about 105, 106 now. It fluctuates really depending on if I train. Like occasionally I might have like a week off, barely, I'll drop a bit. And then when I start training, I just naturally kind of, you know, put on size. You know, I've been doing it for so many years. But like when I think the biggest I ever got in the off season was about 123, 124.
Yeah.
And obviously my cardio was kind of limited then. My cardio was literally just like walking on a treadmill, for example. I mean, one thing I definitely would recommend is HIIT cardio for bodybuilders, even in the off season, because the difference, like in, you know, keeping your heart healthy and strong is ridiculous. I mean, you know, I might do just 2 sessions a week, just sprinting, or like HIIT on the bike. And when I was bodybuilding, you know, I used to be very like, the word hypochondriac over my heart, because obviously my granddad had heart issues quite young, and he was quite fit and healthy, so it always kind of made me a bit paranoid. And I used to get occasional like chest pains and things like that. I'd go for heart scans and it will be okay, but obviously, you know, they did say I had an enlarged heart. Obviously through the bodybuilding, and obviously, you know, the things I took probably didn't help. But literally the difference now, like, you know, being able to jog, being able to sprint, it feels so good. Like honestly, like that old phrase, health is wealth, is so true. And especially after like feeling so sluggish and being on, you know, a lot of gear as like a bodybuilder, you really appreciate how good it feels just to like run about and, you know, to feel fit. And it's a nice feeling.
I hope that you feel that way for a lot longer as well. And I hope that a lot of people have taken away a lot of these points that you have brought up, because you know, bodybuilding is a passion of mine. I absolutely love bodybuilding, and, you know, I coach bodybuilders and all the rest of it, just as you do. And you run bodybuilding shows, so I know that it is a passion that you have. But the thing is that we have to obviously be honest and say, is it actually worth it? You know, you do have to ask that question, because health is wealth.
And I mean, like I said, the genetic elite always rise to the top as well. Like I know some guys, I think, oh gosh, what's his name? He won the Classic at Two Bros. It's prepped by Nathan Harmon. Is it Abu? I can't. Kanate? I don't know his name. I'm not really big on social media. But he won the Classic, got his pro card. He's natural. And you look at him and you think, like, you can see it obviously, because, you know, you can tell kind of he's got great genetics as well. But you see guys like that and they're natural, and you think, like, fuck, like, you know, there's guys who I know taking grams who couldn't get near that, you know, just scary really. But I think a lot of people have to be real with themselves.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
like
the real question.
Like one thing I looked at myself and said, if I did want to turn pro, I'd have to make risks, and at the end of the day, it wouldn't be worth it for me, because I wouldn't do anything with a pro card anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
exactly that. No, love it, absolutely love it. So we are just about up on time here, so thank you very much for your time, Sam. I do really appreciate it. I just have one more question, because it's the same question that I ask everybody at the end of a recording, and I always catch people off guard, because I'm like, have you ever listened to a podcast? Oh no, I haven't. So now you're not off. You don't know the answer to this question. Fair enough. Right. So if you could have dinner with 3 people, living or dead, who would they be and why?
Okay. The first one would be Jose Mourinho, football manager.
Right.
I love him, even though he's managed Man United and Chelsea. I'm a Liverpool fan. The next would be Steve Irwin.
Right, okay, yeah, cool.
I think he'd have some wicked stories, and like he was an idol growing up. And the next one, oh my gosh, it's terrible. I want to say my granddad or Nat,
Yeah.
but I don't know, maybe my old cat.
Your old cat, that's brilliant.
Yeah, because I really miss her, and I'd like her to, like, you know, meet my new pets, and yeah, that's what I'll go for. That's terrible.
I've never had somebody say that they'd have their cat. So that's
I'm
nice.
a very, very big animal lover, you see.
Oh, that's
I'm
really
sure you've seen on Instagram the dog and the cat.
I'm going to go and have a stalk. One, because of the old posts that you put on, and now because of the cats. Right, that is it, my guys, for another episode of Don't Fear the Weight. Thank you so much, Sam, for coming on board and having a chat with me. I really appreciate it. And guys, as per usual, like, subscribe, share, give us a tag, and we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye-bye for now.